Carolina. I'm getting a first-hand view of this through a friend of mine, and it's appalling. Dawn was a staff attorney with NC Prisoner Legal Service for 8 years. She's litigated at all levels of courts, NC trial court, appellate court, even in federal courts, even up to the Supreme Court of the United States. She's been recognized by Governor Cooper as a subject matter expert, and she's been a guest on multiple NPR segments, as well as subject of many interviews. She's also a painter. You can see her great paintings on Facebook. Here's Dawn. Clap.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, on this very, very hot day, when we all would like to be doing something else, somewhere cool, we are forced to do the work that our elected officials should be doing, that our judiciary should be doing, and that is standing up and speaking out in support of a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to bodily autonomy. And most importantly, what we're doing in totality is pushing back against patriarchy. The patriarchy that has been, and most recently, feels so entitled to stand on the rights and the necks of women all over this country to tell us what we can do. This is less about how many children we want to have and what kind of reproductive rights we want to possess, and more about keeping us in our places, keeping women in their places. That's what this is about. Yeah. They think they can put us back into a corner like we were in for so long in America. As a black woman, this is acutely dangerous for me and for women who look like me. When abortions are not legal, black women die. Poor women die because they cannot afford access to safe alternatives. If I don't want to, in a state that doesn't want to give us free health insurance, that doesn't want to fully fund education, that doesn't want to make sure that children are safe and have a safe place to live and have food on their tables, how dare you tell anyone that they have to bring a child into this world if they choose not to? Yep. And if we choose to, how dare you claim that you care about the rights of children, you care about the lives of children, when you don't take about the alive children in North Carolina right now? Yeah. That is how we know that this is not about children. This is not about procreation. This is about control. Yeah. Control of women. Yeah. Just like these anti-protest laws are about control of our political voices and control of black and brown bodies. This is about white men wanting to take control. Yeah. And we must not cede our power. If they didn't recognize our power, they wouldn't fight so hard, they wouldn't go to such lengths to take it from us, ladies. Yeah. We have to stand in our power and demand more. We need to demand more at the ballot boxes. We need to demand more by sending emails, by having phone calls, calling elected officials, watching and protecting women, and helping support our community to make sure that everyone has safe access to the care that they need. That includes the least of us. Yeah. Emancipate NC works specifically with incarcerated communities. Just up the street from us is a women's prison here in North Carolina. Those women on the inside who are already living in cages, who have already had their freedom, their physical freedom taken from them, even less access to health care. That is the least among us, ladies. And we need to be making sure that not only them, but also us, them on the inside, us on the outside, are protected. Those women on the inside are vulnerable. They can't protect themselves. Their power has been limited. That's why it is up to us to make sure that when we are fighting for these rights, we remember all women, wherever they are. In closing, I will say this. This is year 2. If we stand together, if we raise our voices, if we fight like hell, we won't have to stand here for year 3.
Yeah, that's right.
Woo! Woo! Thank you, ladies.
Okay, thank you so much, Dawn. Senator Lisa Grafstein is a longtime advocate for women's rights, LGBTQ rights, and disability rights. Senator Grafstein has been a civil rights lawyer since 1995. After running her own firm for 16 years, she joined Disability Rights North Carolina, a nonprofit organization that advocates for people with disabilities. Senator Grafstein is so effective, they tried to gerrymander her out of being in the Senate. She actually moved so she could continue to be an NC Senator. Yay. I want to mention what good legislators like Senator Grafstein deal with. The anti-abortion law now refers to fetuses as children. The terrible SB 20 bill changed the anti-abortion laws to be more difficult, requiring in-person visits at least 72 hours in advance, requiring physicians to waste time telling patients useless information and signing off with them, and also opening themselves up to be sued wrongly. It's a terrible law. On a happier note, she runs for fun.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you all coming out on this hot day to fight for freedom. I want to tell you and remind us, let's take ourselves back 2 years, right? 2 years ago, when the Dobbs decision came out, I think we were stunned, right? We were all stunned, but we were not really surprised, were we? No. We weren't surprised because, well, one, we saw the leaked decision. We saw the leaked decision that came out that warned what was happening, but we'd also seen just years upon years, decades of extremists on the right attacking Roe versus Wade, trying to chip away, and with the expressed intent of taking away the right to choose, right? They said what they were going to do, they said about doing it, and then they did it. So although we were stunned, we were thrown back on our heels, I don't think we really were surprised that they had succeeded with the Supreme Court that had been appointed primarily by you-know-who. So when we gather here today, I know that we are marking this anniversary for a number of reasons, but one, I think, is to remember the lessons that we learned from the loss of Roe v. Wade, the lessons that we've learned from Dobbs. And to me, a primary lesson that we've learned is that we have to believe the extremists when they tell us what they're about. We have to believe Mark Robinson when he says that he is going to ban abortion if he's elected and has a willing legislature. Right? We have to believe my Senate colleague who said, and this is a real quote, he said that they will ban abortion gradually like slavery. Right? They're going to keep moving. They're moving the ball forward. We have to believe them when they tell us these things. We learned 2 years ago also that we cannot rely on the U.S. Supreme Court to protect our freedoms. And that was a hard blow for many of us who've been lawyers for a long time to realize that our courts are no longer there for us in the ways that we need them to be. We have seen that happen with the North Carolina Supreme Court as well now, and I will just lift up Allison Riggs for the Supreme Court this year. We need to take back our North Carolina Supreme Court because the U.S. Supreme Court has said we're going to leave it to the states, right? States' rights. But our state currently, the Supreme Court is controlled by folks who are going to take our rights away further. So the Dobbs decision itself, if you've read it, you know that it's not just overturning Roe, although that was enough. It said a lot of other things, too. It said that, essentially, we don't have a right to privacy. We don't have a right to say what happens to our bodies. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can marry who you want. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that you have the right to use birth control. These are all cases that came down from the Supreme Court. And in his concurring opinion, Justice Thomas explicitly said, we should really look back at those cases, the ones that said, Griswold that said you can use contraception, and Obergefell that said you can marry who you want, even if they're the same gender that you are. Or even Loving versus Virginia that says race should not be a barrier to legal marriage, right?
Isn't that ironic?
They called all these things into question, and we should believe them when they tell us what they're going to do. I want to also tell you that as these issues have been developing, as we saw what happened with SB 20 in our state, Democrats have been standing up and fighting back against the abortion ban and against all these other incursions into our freedoms. We filed a bill to codify Roe versus Wade, which understand that when we say codify Roe, we understand Roe never really meant that every woman had access to abortion care. But at a bare minimum, we should restore the protections of Roe versus Wade. We have filed bills to protect contraception. We've filed bills for marriage equality. We are fighting back every day.
Yeah.
But all we have, so we don't have the courts. All we have now really is the power of our voices and our votes, right? Luckily, all it takes is a majority, because we are the majority, y'all. We are the majority who believe in freedom. All it takes is the majority to show up and speak up, because when we do, we win, and we will win. So for our democracy and our freedoms to survive, we have to use them both, right? We have to use our voices and our votes. I'm so excited to see you all out here today. I've been very energized by all of the advocates who have refused to just sit back and let our rights be taken away. I'm excited to see Congressman Wiley Nickel walking up. I'm excited for all the partners in this space who are making sure that when we all get together and speak up for one of us, we're speaking up for all of us. Because Dawn is right that all of our freedoms are connected, every one of us. So thank you all for being out here. We on the inside of the building, you have friends in here. Elaine knows this. You have friends in here. You have friends in Congress. We'll continue to fight for you. You continue to fight for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator Grafstein. Next, we have Arlene Rocky, who's a lawyer and a major advocate for the ERA. Attorney Arlene Rocky represents clients throughout North Carolina and Florida, as well as in all other states with local co-counsel. She handles complicated child custody cases for protective parents, as well as other civil and criminal trial court cases. She's been practicing nationally since 2002, and she has been counsel for a federal ERA case. Arlene. Thank you.
I just hold this up.
Yeah, and we hope it works.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Closer.
Okay, can you hear me? I feel like I'm kissing the mic. Yes. Okay, so my name is Arlene Rocky, and in case you might need to Google me, Rocky has an EY in it, and you can also just Google Rocky ERA. And the reason to do that is I have an ERA legal blog on my website, and I'm a lawyer, and I'm into evidence and proof and legal reasoning. And in the blog post that I have from the one before this last one, the one on 1/28/2024, the basis of that was a letter that I sent to the White House counsel and also many other top people in the Biden administration. So I'm going to back up just a tad. Some of you may know my sister, Gina Callias. She's also an attorney. Thank you for clapping for her. She ran for Congress in the Asheville area a couple years back. Don't expect her to run again. I don't think it's very hard to do. But she has been co-counseling with me on the ERA cases. So how I first became involved in this is a former client called me and said that she was an amicus, like a friend of the court, in the Equal Means Equal federal ERA case that they had just filed. And they filed a case in January of 2020, which was the same month that Virginia fully ratified, was the final state, 38th state, to ratify the ERA. Yes, but it's been 4 years. And the last thing that has to happen is for it to be published in the Constitution. So right after that happened, actually it was right before it happened. Pardon? It's the Federal Register, but it's to put it in the Constitution. People don't know what that is really. But yes, the Federal Register, and that puts it in the Constitution. And the archivist has to certify that all those 38 states actually ratified the amendment, which had already been done. It's already been done. It's in fact, there's a link on my blog post, and I also have an opinion article that just came out in the Daily Cause, KOS, and it has the links to that stuff too, pretty much. And what it says is Biden published the ERA, okay? And I'm going to get to that in a minute. But first off, the first person who blocked the ERA was President Trump, one, by appointing 3 justices, and 2, right before Virginia was about to vote, Bill Barr, who was his Attorney General, went to the Office of Legal Counsel in the Department of Justice and asked for an opinion letter that said that the deadline that was put in the prologue of the ERA, not in the actual text of the ERA, by the Congress was a valid deadline, and it was a 7-year deadline for all the states to ratify. And then they expanded, this Congress thought they could expand it, and they expanded it for 3 years. And what happened is it's Phyllis Schlafly. How many of y'all have heard of Phyllis Schlafly? Yeah, and there's a, Mrs. America is a documentary on, I can't remember which, I think it's Hulu maybe, but you can watch that and find out what all happened from her end of the things. But anyway, they found that it was, they told the archivist that the archivist could not publish because the deadline was valid. Well, the deadline is not valid. The deadline is unconstitutional. There's an attorney in Chicago, Michelle Thorne, who did a legal analysis based on Scalia's very conservative textualist and originalist interpretation methods, and determined that the deadline is unconstitutional for a few reasons, mainly because Article 5 did not give Congress the power to put a deadline in its text in the Constitution, and 2, because it violates the 10th Amendment. The ability to put a new amendment in is supposed to be shared power between the states and the federal government. And anything that is not specifically given to the federal government is reserved for the states. So it violates both of those laws. So anyway, we took on the job of being attorneys, and I had another friend of mine who graduated from Chapel Hill with me to be co-counsel as well, and we filed an amicus brief in the 3 courts where Equal Means Equal had been suing to get the court to tell the archivist shall publish. The archivist there's a law, which y'all should remember this law. It's 1 U.S. Code 106B. And the reason why you should remember it is because the president and all presidents have a duty to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. That means faithfully enforced, followed through. And so our president, Biden, has a take care duty to publish the ERA based on 1 USC 106B. And he has not done it, okay? And if he did that, which is just this is what this white sheet is for. It's a project of Equal Means Equal, and it is trying to tell people that Biden just needs to pick up the phone. It's Make the Call Joe. That's the name of it. Make the Call Joe. If he would call the archivist and tell her to publish the ERA, she has to publish it. And in fact, that is specifically one of the types of things he can do with an executive order. He likes those, and he's also promised to do what he could with executive orders, and yet he has not done this. When the Dobbs case was coming down, I listened to the oral arguments. Am I the last one or not? Nope. I got 1 minute. Okay. So I wrote a letter after I got the Alito leak, and it said there was nothing in the Constitution textually that required them to allow abortions. The problem was the ERA was not published in the Constitution, so they didn't have notice that it was an amendment. They didn't have legal notice, and the lawyers for Dobbs would not tell them that the ERA was legally the ERA, okay? And that is horrendous, okay? But I contacted them, and they didn't do anything. So Gina and I, for ERA NC Alliance, who's a co-sponsor of this project today, this gathering, we represented them, and we filed a motion in the Dobbs case asking for permission to file a brief on the ERA in Dobbs, for specifically because it does have the legal basis for abortion rights and reproductive rights, and it also creates a fundamental right. And it also, even though it's not been published, if he publishes it and they get notice that Biden publishes it, that they can overturn Dobbs. It's that strong, and it will get rid of the Comstock Act. Okay? So you need to go around telling Biden to publish the ERA.
Yeah.
And look on my website. I also am Arlene Rocky on Twitter or X. And I would say your chance, if you're marching, should be Biden publish the ERA. ERA is the only way, because Congress has to have a constitutional reason to make a law. So they cannot codify Roe until Biden publishes the ERA.
Get your picture taken.
What do I do with this? Thank you.
Thank you.
Woo!
Okay, Wiley Nichols is next. Okay. Announcement from Marla Barthen, who came from Wilmington and is our nurse and photographer.
Not really a good photographer, but I really am a nurse. I do have some bandanas, ERA bandanas that are cold with some sea breeze on them that you kind of can wring out and put on your neck. They're $5 if you want them. They're already cold and prepped for you. And then make sure you get water while you're out here. And if you need it, I have liquid IV. So everybody stay safe.
We have a real nurse here. Yeah. Congressman Wiley Nickel is currently serving his first term in Congress as the U.S. representative to the 13th District of North Carolina, which includes Wake, Wayne, Johnston, and Harnett counties. Prior to being elected to Congress, he was here as a North Carolina state senator. He's an attorney, a small business owner, and worked for 2 White House administrations. He's a longtime advocate for women here and in Congress, and in Congress he has joined Representative Presley's ERA caucus to affirm gender equality in the U.S. Constitution. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, thank you so much for being here on a hot day. I know it is hot. All right, there we go. I know it is hot out here. I know it has been a long day, but being out here matters. Your support matters. And let me just tell you, today marks the 2-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision. But we have the power in this next election to change that decision. We don't need to worry about what the Supreme Court does. I believe this. I serve in the House of Representatives. The Republicans have a 4-seat majority right now, just 4 seats in the U.S. Congress. I believe very firmly that Hakeem Jeffries will be the next Speaker of the House. The bills that I have authored and co-sponsored, thank you, the bills that I have authored and co-sponsored, Hakeem Jeffries will move those through to codify the right for a woman to choose to make a decision about her own health care. That bill is there. We have all of the Democrats have signed on to this bill. We're going to move that through the House in the next Congress. As long as we can get the Senate, it only takes 50 votes in the Senate to move a bill onto the president's desk. There is so much at stake in this next election. I want to just say a few words that I wrote down here for this. Again, June 24th, 2020, Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization overturned Roe, an extreme rollback of women's rights in America. Around the country, particularly in North Carolina, the aftermath of the Dobbs decision has been swift and severe. In July 2023, right here, the Republican gerrymandered majority in the General Assembly enacted a law prohibiting abortion after 12 weeks with very few exceptions. Also mandating in-person state-directed counseling, totally medically unnecessary, 3 days before the procedure. Meanwhile, other states have outlawed abortion and other reproductive health services altogether. In Alabama, a state Supreme Court ruling has effectively halted access to in vitro fertilization. This disturbing trend is a setback for our country. We are now having to fight for IVF around the country and in the United States Congress. Listen, folks, I am staunchly pro-choice and a committed member of the House Pro-Choice Caucus. Thank you. And I want my daughter to grow up and have the same rights to her body that her mother had for the last 50 years. The ability to make your own decisions about your body is a fundamental human right, and I'm not going to stand for that being stripped away from women in this country. I'm going to continue doing everything I can in Congress to restore and protect the right to choose. Now listen, I want to just end by making 3 important points that I think matter here. I want to live in a state where healthcare decisions are made between a woman and her doctor. Weekly, monthly, I have conversations with doctors who provide care for women, who tell me how hard it is to practice medicine, where they're constantly worried about being sued, constantly worried about choices they have to make for the health and safety of a woman during her pregnancy. Many I've talked to are just have thrown their hands in the air, and they're moving to other states where they can practice medicine. Just this last week, I talked to a doctor who said he's had enough of it. He's going to just drive a few extra hours into Virginia to practice, where he doesn't have to make those decisions. He can make the decisions for the best, for the health of his patients. All right, so I want to tie this to something that matters a lot to me. I've spent most of the last 2 years campaigning on the right to fair maps, ending partisan gerrymandering that we continue to see here, and why this matters for a woman's right to choose. I'm so excited about this issue, trying to get as much attention as I can to fair maps, that just last week I went skydiving over in Fayetteville to try to bring attention to the need for fair maps. So, yeah. And if there's something I can do on this issue that will bring attention to it, I will be there to do it. But why this matters? In North Carolina, the seat that I got elected to was a Republican-leaning seat. We are just a stone's throw from my district here in Raleigh, and it was a seat that could have gone either way. We had fair maps in the last election. They were maps that were designed to elect 7 Republicans, 6 Democrats, and 1 50-50 seat that literally could have gone either way. Nobody knew which way this seat was going to go, but that's the seat that we campaigned in. And because of your support, because women turned out to vote, because pro-choice voters made their voice heard, I got elected to Congress by 3 points in a Republican district. So I want you to have hope on this issue. North Carolina, by the way, is an R+2 state, slightly Republican. My district was an R+2 district, slightly Republican, but could go either way. This is going to be an election where the best ideas are going to matter. Your candidate's position on a woman's right to choose will matter again in November, and this issue's on the ballot. But because of gerrymandering, the voters' voices in my congressional district, Jeff Jackson's congressional district, Kathy Manning's congressional district, were all silenced. We were gerrymandered into heavily Republican districts, and now there will be 3 fewer members of the pro-choice caucus in the United States Congress because of Republican gerrymandering. So the decisions they make here about gerrymandering and certainly about a woman's right to choose are all connected. This is one that matters. But folks, I want you to take hope in our election results. We proved that if you campaign on this issue in a fair fight, you can make a difference. I'm in Washington doing everything I can right now to protect a woman's right to choose, to put the protections of Roe v. Wade into federal law. Time and time again, I have signed off on legislation. I've supported legislation to do just that. I'm working with every ounce of my energy in Congress to get this done, and I'm incredibly optimistic about what we're going to be able to do in this next election. Please make your voices heard. Continue to show up in the heat in hot days like this on this issue, because your work, your support, it will make a huge difference. Thank you so much.
Okay, so Dr. Jenna Beckham was our next speaker, and she's probably still in surgery. But I want to read some of her qualifications. And this is an example of someone that the legislators are refusing to consult when they're making anti-abortion legislation. They're supposed to consult the experts, and they're ignoring the experts, like Dr. Jenna Beckham. So she's an OB-GYN with clinical interest in high-risk obstetrics, minimally invasive gynecological surgery, including robotic surgery, abnormal uterine bleeding and uterine fibroids, and they're not consulting her. She also does medical and surgical care of transgender and gender non-conforming patients and family planning, and they're not consulting her. She did research on maternal and infant morbidity and mortality, and they're not consulting her. And this is the thing. They're making bad law. They're not consulting who they should consult. And their ignorance has deadly consequences. As we see with extreme examples in like Texas, these politicians don't care about women and girls. So that's Dr. Beckham. Yeah, forced birth. Okay, our last speaker is Jerry Richards from North Carolina Now. She's the Chapel Hill Now president. She does an amazing job. I love working with her. She's a former high school English teacher from Central New York State, so she's great at editing. She has great ideas for events, including there's a current student Get Out the Vote plan, and she's a great collaborator. So she is also another painter focused on watercolor and mixed media. Here's Jerry. You guys go. Here, put 'em.
Okay, thank you, Galia. Thank you very much for that. And I want to thank the other speakers for taking time to come here today on such a blistering hot day. And I want to mostly thank the people who showed up today, all of all of our supporters and all of our friends. And I want to say, this is not part of my speech, so don't count the time. I want to say that even though we're few in numbers, we are strong in resolve. And we need to remember that. You don't need 3,000 people if you have a few that are really dedicated. All right? So today, and I think this is a good time to do this, I'm going to talk about shaming. I'm going to talk about how women are shamed about their bodies and what they do, what they want to do, and so forth. And I think that there may be a few people here like myself who will recognize all of these things that I say and maybe think of a couple of others that could have been on my list. All right? But I want to introduce you to my bell. This is my shame bell. For those of you who watched, and I won't name it, a very popular series on TV a few years ago, you might remember that there was one very potent scene where a woman was shamed as she walked down the street. We don't need, if you know this, you don't need any more details. But somebody was ringing this bell, and everybody in the crowd would yell, "Shame." And it was a very powerful moment. Now, at the end of this series, it's the women who save everyone. And so even though there were moments here where people I know and really like and a lot, were aghast that I was watching this. All right, but at any rate, here we go. All right, now, throughout our lives, we have... You want to ring the bell? Okay. Galia's gonna be my bell ringer. Let's see if she can do it. Galia, ring the bell. Excellent. Thank you. I mean, give it a really good. You got it. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Throughout our lives, we have been shamed with our bodies. Our bodies have been attacked. You're too fat, you're too thin. For those who do this, we all say, shame! Louder again! Shame! Thank you. Women have been shamed for their abilities. Their talents have been dismissed. Someone might have said to you, I bet you're not as smart as your brother. For those who did this and still do this, we say, shame! Shame, yes. For those, also, our observations have often been dismissed. Our observations, even about our own health, have been ignored. So now in North Carolina, and indeed in the entire United States, it is dangerous to be pregnant. It is even life-threatening, especially for our black and brown sisters. And for those who continue this, we say, shame! A little more energy, please. Okay. All right, I only have 13 pages, so this will go quickly now, all right? When we chose not to be pregnant, we're called irresponsible. We're called a murderer. For those who say these things, we say shame. When we are not allowed the care that will save our lives, even our fertility, to those who are not doctors but think they have rights women don't deserve, we say shame. When we are told that our place, our ambitions, our choices are limited, to those who prevent us from being the full woman that we were meant to be, we say shame. Well, we are not going to be shamed anymore. We will be in control of our bodies, our minds, and our futures. So we say that we have replaced shame with action. Woo! Woo! Thank you. You're great participants. Thank you.
Hi. That was fun. Okay, so all your experiences contribute to who you are and what you can do. For Elaine, Sherry, and I, we're past Raleigh Women's March organizers, and on that note, we're going to move into marching, but first, let's get pictures. Go and get your picture taken, and then we'll move into marching. Okay, so there are props, there are phones, there are hats, there are other things, boas maybe. So let's do pictures and then march. Thank you. Okay, we're officially done.
Alrighty, and where are you guys marching to?
We're marching around here. There's a map. I don't know, but I think it's just around the legislative building.
Yeah,
So we don't
I
cross
thought
any
we just-
streets.
I just thought we'd start like down there and then just walk all the way down and then to the other side where they go into the
Construction.
garage
Oh, okay.
and then turn around and then come back.
Well, I can yell chants and you can lead where I'm going. But I want to get more pictures done.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted
Okay.
to tell you people.
Okay.
So I.
Yeah. I'm helping one child.
So I think we need to address the consequences of unwanted pregnancy and children that people didn't mean to have, that parents not.
Do you want to write something and send it to me?
My name's Jennifer Didn't and I started in childhood. It was
Yeah. There's another one here. More energy around here too. But yeah, write me.
because I'm
No, you're
so
exactly
concerned
right.
about that.
You're exactly right.